Hello and welcome to the State of the Line podcast. I'm Christine Pike, and today we'll be diving into large claims in workers' compensation and how they emerge, specifically the differences between fast versus slow emerging claims. To help us understand it all, we have NCCI actuary and expert Yuchen Su, who has also authored the latest research on large claim trends. Yuchen, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Christine. I'm excited to be here.
You've been talking a lot about large claims recently. Earlier this year, you co-authored a thought leadership article that's available on ncci.com. Of course, we'll link that in the show notes. And you recently presented on this topic at this year's Residual Market Forum. So we definitely have the expert here today. I know that understanding large claims is important. It's a topic that's on stakeholders' minds. So I would love it for you to walk us through definitions, maybe, so everybody's on the same page. What do we mean by fast emerging and slow emerging large claims?
Sure, let's just start with large claims. When we say large claim, we generally mean a claim that reaches a very high cost threshold, which is 1 million in total incurred losses in our study. And this 1 million is expressed in 2024 dollars. Once we identify all large claims, we further split them into two groups based on how quickly claims reach that threshold. Fast emerging large claims hit that 1 million mark quickly, roughly within 2 years of the workplace accident causing the injury. These are usually extremely severe incidents. Think of a major highway accident or a construction worker falling from a roof.
I imagine a lot would go into treating those types of injuries, right?
Exactly. There might be multiple surgeries, time in intensive care, and even long-term in-home nursing care.
So those are the ones that we're considering fast emerging large claims. Tell us a little bit about slow emerging large claims.
Slow emerging large claims are the large losses that take longer to develop. They reach the 1 million mark more than 2 years after the accident. These often start out as injuries don't seem catastrophic at first, but deteriorate or complicate over time.
Can you give us an example? I feel like it's harder to imagine slow emerging large claims than a fast one.
A typical example might be a severe back strain from heavy lifting. Maybe it starts with conservative treatment such as rest, medications, and physical therapy, but if the symptoms persist or worsen, it may end up with one or even multiple surgeries, followed by additional treatments over several years. Eventually, say 5 or 6 years later, the total incurred costs cross that 1 million mark. In other words, the claim slowly emerges into a large loss. A bit mouthful to say fast emerging large claims and slow emerging large claims, so sometimes I just call them fast large and slow large for short.
Okay, so fast large and slow large. And what I'm hearing you say is that it's about how quickly a claim becomes a large claim. So at the conference, you used an iceberg to sum up large claim trends. I feel like that resonated with a lot of folks. Can you share that analogy now with our listeners?
Sure. Let's imagine an iceberg in the ocean. We see the tip above the water, and we know there's also a part hidden below. In our analogy, the fast emerging large claims are like the tip of the iceberg. We see them almost immediately because they become big right away. It is easily recognizable early on that these claims are going to be costly. In contrast, the slow emerging large claims are like the submerged part of the iceberg. Their true magnitude isn't clear at first. They lurk beneath the surface, and we might not recognize how big they are until years later when they finally emerge.
So now that we understand fast large and slow large, let's pivot to what we're seeing in workers' compensation in regards to these large claims. How have fast and slow large claims been trending over time?
That's a great question. About 20 years ago, most large claims are slow emerging. roughly 3 out of 4 large claims were slow emerging. Over time, that mix has shifted significantly, and today, fast emerging large claims actually make up the bigger share of the pie. In the latest data included in our study, accident year 2023, around 60% of large claims are fast emerging and only about 40% are slow.
That is a huge difference from 20 years ago.
It is. We are seeing more of the costly claims become evident earlier, and far fewer of those out-of-nowhere surprises years down the road.
When would you say that shift started to take place?
The share of slow large claims has dropped sharply since around 2008, while the share of fast ones has been rising gradually. When we add the share of fast and slow, we see the total frequency of large claims had been declining since 2008 until 2022, driven by the significant decline in the slow large. And then it started to turn around, driven by the increase in fast large.
And what do you think is contributing to that shift?
We are still exploring all the potential reasons, but there are a few likely factors. Let's first talk about the decline in the share of slow large. One factor that may be contributing are the changes in medical treatment and opioid use. Over the years, there's been a big push to improve pain management in workers' comp. Prescription opioid use has been reduced significantly. I know that we just put out a paper on NCCI.com on the variation in interstate pain management trends that goes into this in more detail. So definitely check that out.
Thank you for mentioning that, Yuchen. That's like your own shameless plug. I appreciate it. We'll link that in the show notes for sure. So let's go back and help me understand the role that opioid prescribing plays in the development of large claims.
Well, high opioid usage has been associated with significant side effects and a prolonged recovery process, which in the past sometimes caused non-large claims to balloon into slow emerging large ones. With better pain management and fewer opioids prescribed, injured workers may have fewer of those complications, reducing the incidence of slow developing high-cost claims.
That makes a lot of sense. So what else could be driving the decline in slow large claims?
We think enhancements being made to claim management and early intervention may also have played a role here. Over the last 2 decades also, the industry has become better at identifying potentially severe claims and intervening earlier. In a previous podcast episode, my colleague Damien England mentioned that predictive analytics may be used to flag at-risk claims and get nurse case managers involved sooner. When we recognize cases with potential complications earlier, injured workers get the right treatment sooner, which can help prevent a moderate claim from deteriorating into a slow large one over time.
And if you're interested in hearing more about the podcast that Yuchen had just mentioned, her colleague Damien England, also my colleague, and Dr. Michael Chu from Paradigm. So thank you for shouting that out, Yuchen. I imagine early recognition of large claims can also cause some claims to maybe shift from the slow to the fast category. What else do you think could explain the increase in the share of fast large claims?
In that same podcast episode, Dr. Michael Chu noted that people today are surviving longer and surviving more catastrophic events thanks to the remarkable advances in what he calls damage control interventions. These medical and technological improvements have expanded the options available for both the intensity of care and the duration of care, and as a result, have elevated the overall cost for those large claims.
And ultimately, we want the best outcome for the injured worker. Now let's talk about impact. I imagine this shift has an impact on projecting large claims, perhaps with more accuracy?
Absolutely. Reflecting the changes in large claim emergence is important because it has a direct impact on how we estimate ultimate large losses. If we relied on older data, we might estimate a much bigger share of large claims based on what we see from the tip of the iceberg, to go back to my analogy from earlier. But Because NCCI continuously monitors a wide range of metrics, we know we need to adjust how we estimate to reflect now we have fewer large claims to emerge later.
Speaking of monitoring, let's talk a little bit about NCCI's fast versus slow emerging claims tool. What does it do, Yuchen, and where can stakeholders find it?
The fast versus slow emerging large claims tool is available on ncci.com for our affiliates and regulators. Users can use it to explore these trends we discussed today and even break the data down by class hazard groups. They can also select alternative large claim thresholds other than 1 million and check out the inflation adjustment factors and development factors used in our analysis. If you haven't explored, I would definitely encourage you to take a look. There's lots of great information in there.
It does sound like there's a lot of information in there, a super useful tool. Yuchen, thank you so much. If any of our listeners have questions regarding large claims, please reach out to us at insights@ncci.com. We would love to hear from you. Yuchen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Christine.
Thank you for listening to NCCI's State of the Line podcast. We'll see you next time.
This podcast is the copyrighted material of the National Council on Compensation Insurance, 2026. All rights reserved.